Hello there, Battle Cats players. My name is Chance, and welcome to my guide. Today, we are going to be taking a look at a bone of contention for me personally, is I guess the short answer. But even more specifically, we're going to be taking a look at cat number 2, or at least designated with the ID number 2. Technically, he's the third cat we're covering, but for whatever reason, Ponos labeled cat number 0, so it throws everything out of whack. But that aside, today we're going to be taking a look at Axe Cat. He is one of the normal cats, and you unlock him after clearing China in Empire of Cats level 1. So fairly early game, and you can further upgrade him and use cat capsules to get him plus levels, things of that nature. He's an interesting cat. I have a gripe about him, and I am a strong believer that if you complain about something, you should offer a solution to it. And I think in Axe Cat's case, there's a fairly easy to implement solution, and I wish Ponos would do it. But this is kind of a milestone cat for the channel in the way that he will introduce a feature and term in Battle Cats that you will hear a lot and doesn't really get explained in-game that well. Battle Cats, as I'm sure many of you know, doesn't really hold people's hands outside of Empire of Cats Chapter 1. After that, it just kind of lets you go wild, and people make all kinds of ridiculous mistakes. And I would count Axe Cats as being one of those mistakes in most cases, and I can't really blame people. But in any case, enough complaining. Let's now take a look at his evolutions. Much like many of the other normal cats, Axe Cat follows a similar progression. He evolves into Brave Cat at level 10, and then evolves into Dark Cat after reaching a cumulative level of 30, usually done by a level 20 capstone, and then an additional plus 10 using cat tickets. It is worth noting that in his true form, Dark Cat is probably his most, well, obviously his most powerful, but there is a significant boost to attack and health, and you'll be able to see that on the charts towards the end of the video. He is probably one of the coolest looking normal cats. I really like his style. I think he looks very menacing, at least as menacing as a two-dimensional cartoon cat can be, and I kind of like the whole dark hero vibe that Dark Cat gives off. But that's where my praise about ends. Let's now look at his performance. Oh, Axe Cat, why did Ponos have to do you so dirty? Alright, so Axe Cat actually serves a very vital role in the tutorial, and he is the first unit you get that actually offers some kind of special significance. In this case, it is being strong against red enemies. Now, what does it mean exactly to be strong against red enemies? It means you do 1.5 times damage, and you take half damage from them. And I know what you're thinking. Wow, that's pretty impressive, right? And to put a further point on that, Axe Cat actually has really good damage relative to Eraser and Cat. Or sorry, a tank and cat, I should say. I should stop. Whatever. It's an old habit. But he gets outclassed very quickly by people who, or by cats rather, who we're going to be doing videos on in the near future. So his usefulness window is actually fairly small. Plus side, he has a very short cooldown and relatively low cost. At least relative to the point you get him. But yeah, as you get more cat, I'll talk about it later. And in terms of cons, single target and short range attack. That is really the nail in the coffin for Axe Cat, is how short his attack range is. When you first get him, you don't really understand because you've only unlocked 3 cats. But let me tell you, range is probably the most significant attribute for damage dealers. And the later you get into this game, the more obvious it is why that is. There are some exceptions, but for the most part, if you can outrange an enemy, you will likely beat them given a long enough time frame. Just through virtue of the fact you're able to damage them, they're not able to damage you, and if you stack meat shields accordingly, then it's really a non-issue, right? You kind of see what I'm getting at. In terms of class, Axe Cat is considered to be a meat shield and a combo slave. I would consider him to be a meat shield in the loosest sense of the word. I dare say he is probably one of the worst cats considered to be a meat shield, and he is that way because I guess his health is okay, and he does have a very short cooldown, but relative to Tank Cat, I couldn't really imagine it. And meat shields, if you're not familiar, are units with low cost, minimal recharge time, and preferably have the survivability and or high health. And now combo slave is one we haven't covered before. Combo slaves are units that would either be useless if not for their cat combos, or do have a role but are mostly used for cat combos. This is technically true. We will cover combos later on. Axe Cat has a lot of them. Some of them are actually pretty good. Some of them used to be a lot better but got reworked, so I won't even bother talking about their previous versions because it is not relevant to you. But ultimately, a lot of his cat combos hinge on certain gacha units. So if you don't have them, the odds of you actually putting at least base Axe Cat in your lineup anywhere is fairly slim to none. Anyways, let's move on so we can actually watch some gameplay and I can talk a little bit about the finer points of how to use Axe Cat, and better yet, what I would do to fix him if I were in Pono's shoes. I don't expect them to ever see this video, and if they do, hi Ponos, thanks for viewing, but please test what I'm saying before you actually implement it, because like in theory I think it would work, but it might actually defeat the purpose of Axe Cat depending on how you're looking at it. So Axe Cat is actually really great when you first get him. As I mentioned before, he'll outdamage Tank Cat, and there are certain enemies, we haven't covered enemies yet so I won't talk about them too much, but Pigge is probably the first one you'll run into, which is a red enemy, and if you're not expecting him, it can be a little bit rough. He is a very high damage unit and he's tanky as well, so if you're likely to experience your first loss, odds are Pigge's gonna have something to do with it. However, the next cat you unlock basically makes him completely redundant. It comes down to that range once again. If he has such a short range, and there are enemies later on in the game that have very, very good range. Some of them are actually red as well, funny enough, but it is one of those things. He doesn't have the survivability needed to be a viable meat shield mid or end game, and even early game there are better options. You could make an argument that if Tank Cat is on recharge because you haven't gotten the treasures and you haven't focused on leveling up your cat research, then maybe you can make an argument that Axe Cat being off cooldown is better than nothing, and there might be some truth to that, but it would be easier, in my opinion, to grind if you're relying on Axe Cat regularly. It's not a good sign of things that are to come in your game, and there's no reason not to have the other ones unlocked because they are also normal cats, so you're not relying on a gacha mechanic for it. He basically shoots himself in the foot. Now I hear you asking, what exactly would I do to change him and make him viable? I would give him the survivability feature. What that is it makes it so he has a chance, make it a small chance, but still give him a chance to survive a blow regardless of damage output. I think if you gave him that, at least give it to him in his true form, right? Like that to me seems more than fair. It makes him a viable meat shield. And if you wanted to, if you felt really generous, increase his range on all of his forms to actually make it so he's not on the exact same level as a racer cat. If anything, I think he's a little bit further ahead. I might have to test that on my own time, but it's not great. It's really not great. In any case, as you can see on the screen there, as far as costs go, Chapter 1, he'll cost you 200 cents, Chapter 2, 300 cents, and Chapter 3, 400 cents. So he's really not that cheap of a unit. Towards the mid and end game, getting 400 cents doesn't actually take that long, so I guess it's fairly spammable then. But early game's slow, and upgrading Worker Cat endlessly is kind of a pain in the neck. Or at least it can be kind of tedious. Very often it's not worth it if you have like a fully maxed out Worker Cat in the shop, but we can talk about that in another video. In any case, let's move on to some of the finer points about Axe Cat, namely his cat combos. Up first, we have the same cat combo we've actually been talking about since the start of the series. Cat Army. Worker Cat starts leveled up. More specifically, it starts with a +1 on it, and for this combo you need Cat, Tank Cat, Axe Cat, Gross Cat, and Cow Cat. Kind of unrelated, but this will be the first cat combo playlist we have completed as well, so I'll be doing a YouTube short on it to kind of commemorate that and act as a capstone video for it. Once again, kind of useful very, very early on, but towards the mid and end game, you should never be using this. It just makes no sense. There are much better cat combos in the game, and many of them you all have access to as soon as you get cat combos. So not really that usable in hindsight, I guess. So I do apologize for that. Up next, Choppers. Unit attack up. This requires Executioner, Axe Cat, and War God Kiji. This cat combo will increase Cat's attack power by 10%. This is actually pretty good, I would say. I don't know if it's worth taking up 3 of your first slots for, but if you have the gotchas for it and you got nothing else, extra damage is never a bad thing, and 10% on some units is actually massive. Definitely worth looking into. Up next, we have Power of Darkness, and this is a weaken effect up. So weaken duration is increased by 20%. This requires Dark Cat and Dark Laser. Both of these cats are fairly easy to attain, like the odds are certainly in your favor. Weaken is one of my more favorite status effects. If you are unfamiliar, Weakened is a status effect that makes so enemies do less damage, which kind of makes sense. But the grievance I have with this particular cat combo is that a lot of the cats that cause Weaken are quite spammable cats. I suppose if you don't have a spammable cat causing Weaken and you need to use it, then this cat combo would make sense, but I would say that's really only like an early to mid game viability, although it is a medium, so it's pretty substantial for a 2 cat combo. So I guess overall it's actually pretty good then. Pretty good. Up next we have Lust for Battle. This is another unit attack up. Very similar to the choppers we covered earlier. This requires Axe Cat, Urun Wolf, and Lesser Demon Cat. And it increases Cat's power by 10% again. So you do get Axe Cat and Urun Wolf essentially as part of the main campaigns. Lesser Demon Cat, you might have to get a little bit lucky to get, but it shouldn't be that difficult. Up next, we have Playing Slayer. This is a strong effect up. Brave Cat and Oriamos are required to make it work. And strong effect up. The effect of this ability is increased by 10%. So that means as opposed to doing 1.5 times multiplier of your damage, it's a 1.6. And instead of taking half damage, it's 40% damage, which up against some stages, one in particular I'm thinking of, it's an event stage that's basically pure red enemies, could be a difference maker to some extent or another. Ultimately, it does depend on the cats you have in your arsenal, of course, but fairly good. Up next, we have Warriors of Justice, Cat Cannon Recharge Up. This requires Kinranger's Roboforce, Space Marine Cat, and Brave Cat. Space Marine Cat is like actually one of my favorite cats in the game, if for nothing other than I used to have him on my general squad forever, and I still do, I believe. I believe I still do. He's a great unit to have once you start getting into some of the later campaigns and certainly certain event stages. In any case, this is a large for the denomination of the combo. So Cat Cannon will charge 15 seconds faster, which is massive. There are some stages, namely the zombie stage, where having a certain Cat Cannon will greatly benefit you, and to have it recharge 15 seconds faster, which is quite significant assuming your cannon is maxed on recharge time. It's pretty dang good. These are also all fairly good cats. Kinranger's Roboforce is a little bit hard to get. It is a little bit rare, but still definitely worth having. Eventually we'll stumble across it at one point or another. Now that that is done, let's take a look at some of Axe Cat's other stats. And by that, what I mean is I'm going to flash the graphs on screen here, give you a quick minute to look them over. It is fairly boring stuff, and if it's been a significant amount of time since this video has been out and you are running some math for whatever reason, feel free to check back to the wiki. It is where I pull this information from, so it should, if it's not updated here, it will be there. And please just mention in the comment section if it has changed, just so everyone else knows to look there. And while you guys are doing that, I will read some trivia. Berserkori's axe looks the same as Axe Cat's, only Berserkori's is bloodstained. In his Japanese description, it's Axe Cat whose house he was freeloading at. Additionally, the Axe Cat's Japanese name is Battle Cat, while Berserkori's name is Koalachicho. Anyways, the cross on Brave Cat and Dark Cat shield could be a reference to the Crusaders, although it is likely just an indication of the shape of his shield. Very interesting stuff. And before we end this video, I just want to say thank you so much, guys, for getting to this point. It certainly is a privilege and an honor to interact with all of you. I would like to thank the people who comment regularly. It definitely makes the job of creating these videos far more entertaining and engaging, and I hope you're satisfied with the content. I'm going to be making small tweaks as the series continues. I just have a few ideas I'd really like to test out, and a lot of them look really good on paper, so feel free to offer any input in relation to the quality of these videos and ways I can improve them. Also mention your thoughts on Axe Cat down beneath, whether you think he's good, bad, how to fix him, any interesting stages you've had with him, and just best use case, worst use case, stuff like that. Just fill up the comment section, guys. I really do appreciate all of you, and until next time, don't forget to like and subscribe for Cat God's Blessing, and I'll see you all later.